Harcourt Fenton Mudd sold the Danubians all the rights to a Vulcan fuel synthesizer. The Barbara series, Maisie series, Trudy series, and particularly the Alice series were all made to Harry Mudd's personal specifications. And Chekhov likes Alice 118 and 322. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton and Walter Koenig.
Hello.
Здравствуйте, товарищи.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Original Series, Season 2, Episode 8, entitled I, Mudd, written by Stephen Kandel, directed by Mark Daniels again. This was November 3rd, 1967. Where were all of you? How you guys doing today?
Doing great. Yeah. How are you, Walter?
How am I?
Yeah,
Oh,
how
yeah.
you feel?
I'm doing fine now. Now I had a little problem with COVID, but I survived it and did a convention prior to today's show, and in Atlanta, Georgia.
Nice.
And I got to say. It was really very much chicken of me because I should have gone into it more. I just said, I sure as hell ain't going to be voting for the guy with the funny hair. That's as much as I allowed myself. I got some yays and I got some boos. I got one person who I never could identify her because I came off the podium to be closer to the audience because I was having trouble hearing. But she raised her hand, and she was in the audience, and she went into a diatribe on how my accent was fake, and how I knew it was fake, and I should have told the audience or made it known that it was fake. It was fake, and she went on and on for 2 or 3 minutes anyway, and. I swear to God, guys, I never had talked to her before that moment. It was like she was getting back at me.
Well, the funny part about that is she doesn't have to say it's fake, obviously, because people are hearing you talk on stage in your normal voice and your normal accent. So why does she feel the need to let everybody know that it's fake? They can tell. Everybody knows.
Well, she was saying it's a fake Russian accent. So that was the complaint. That was a fake Russian accent.
Boy,
so
she got you.
God. So after 3 or 4 minutes of fake, I said, next question. And I let it go.
In a Chekhov accent.
You go away from one of those things and you think, why is she so angry? And why is she so angry at me? Someone who I've never spoken to. I'll never find out. I'll never know. But I found it curious. There is somebody who's in your coterie of viewers who was there. And maybe when we see his face, he'll know.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you often get criticism, Walter, about your accent? Has that happened before? With people
no.
just satisfied?
The only criticisms I get about the accent is that there is no W in the Russian language. So how could I say nuclear vessels? But the point is, my old man came from the Soviet Union. He spoke with a Russian accent. He talked about passing the vegetables all the time. So I know that they do that. I know they do it in the German language. Mm-hmm. They use W's for V's. Mm-hmm. Not every dialect does, but there are dialects too.
Yeah.
So
India too.
To find fault because there's no W is suspect, or at least erroneous. Because yes, there's no W, but they use it anyway. When they want to say use a V, they use a W. Not all Russian accents, but certainly more than one or two.
Mm-hmm. It's very suspect. So everybody, please make sure that you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening, and give us a 5-star rating and a nice review, we'd really appreciate that. And go to patreon.com/the7th rule to become a supporter. Become a patron of the 7th rule at patreon.com/the7th rule. Wow, that almost sounded like a commercial. That's pretty good.
Wow.
So let's talk. Thank you. Well, let's talk about this fun episode entitled I, Mud. First of all, right behind me, there's a fun dance thing. Okay, here's the thing, Walter. Sirach and I shouldn't speak for Sirach. I don't think he's seen this episode, but I know I have never actually seen this episode. I'm aware of this famous scene. I'm aware of Walter doing his insane gravity-defying dance moves. But I didn't know the rest of the episode. So I was like, oh boy, this is that one. This is that fun one. Sirach, had you seen this?
No, I hadn't seen this episode. I would have remembered this for sure.
And Walter, you certainly haven't seen it in certainly decades, at least.
Decades, yes.
So
I let me kick it off because it's nice to be able to say something good, about what you see. And I thought it was absolutely delightful. I thought they had a very interesting, they used, I don't know how many of your viewers know the term misdirection, but this was an episode of misdirection. So it started off very seriously. What was his name?
Norman.
Norman is a menacing character. And that whole opening with the forest trying to talk to him, and you think you're going to see, this is going to be at the least scary, at the most, lots of red shirts are going to fall over, but as you got into it, and as we arrived on the planet, it became something quite different. It became I thought, a really fun experience for all of us. We all had moments that were humorous. We all had moments that made us chuckle. And Michelle had a couple of great moments, about living to 200,000 years of age. If she became an android. Jimmy was funny. I thought everybody was funny. I thought Leonard was terrific in counterpoint, because Leonard, he was taking it seriously, but he wasn't letting it upset him. It totally didn't upset him talking to Norman and Norman's absurd statements that he was making, and Leonard was just raising an eyebrow and just dealing with it. I thought that was great fun. Bill was terrific. The only person we didn't see was George. I don't know. Maybe that's when he was shooting Green Berets. I don't know. But that's probably what was happening. He was shooting Green Berets.
I saw him on the monitor.
On the bridge.
On the bridge. Looking into the screen when they were talking about the coordinate, which direction they were headed to once the ship was taken over by Norman.
Yeah, in the first few minutes, but then after that, right? So maybe he did one
after
day.
That,
maybe he did just the first day, Monday, and then that was
Never
it.
mind.
But I mean, that was it. Then they had 5 of you going down to the planet. So I'm thinking, okay, so George and Jimmy are staying on the ship. Okay, and I'm thinking they're going to cut back and they're going to show Takei, they're going to show Sulu in the captain's chair and doing some things with Scotty. They're going to be like the people back on the ship. But then lo and behold, Scotty's now on the planet too. So I was like, okay, well, there goes that theory. And then, there was no George the rest of the way.
Okay, now I'm going to show you how erudite I am and how deeply involved I am with all the important details. So you know that you're in the company of somebody of auspicious knowledge.
Ooh, big words too.
Okay. Would Chekhov and Uhura, now listen carefully, would they sit on that couch in the presence of McCoy, Kirk, and Spock? I don't think they would do that. I think
you mean because they're subordinates?
Yeah, against protocol. I never thought of it when we were shooting it, but I looked at it and said, "My God!" Well, I didn't say it like that. I said, "My God." That was more like the way I said it. So
I thought about that, Walter, a little bit. I did think about that.
did you?
And the thing that I thought wasn't about being a subordinate, I thought more along the lines of it felt like it was too comfortable a position to be in a situation which you're trying to get out of. So if I'm,
You're right.
yeah, if I'm in a situation where I'm held against my will, the last thing I'm going to do is kick my feet up and my head behind the back like this. I'm going to be walking around pacing. I'm going to be looking for an exit, out of that place and how I can escape. There's I'd be surveilling my surrounding a lot more.
I defer. You're right. You're absolutely right. I agree. At the same time, I was curious about Mud's shiny dome. He was sweating profusely.
It must have been hot.
Where was the makeup person? I mean, his forehead, his nose was really, really sweating. So I thought that was inappropriate. Damn it.
Well, there are a couple things on that. One is, maybe playing devil's advocate. I'm probably wrong here as usual. Maybe the director said, no. We want this guy with the used car salesman kind of feel, to be sweaty. We want him to be shiny. We want him to be, kind of a mess. I don't know. I doubt it, but maybe that's what it. And the other thing I wanted to ask you.
It's possible, but he wasn't in every scene. He wasn't in this particular scene. He was. So you may have a point,
Walter.
I don't know what kind of a deal you have with people at Paramount, whether there's money involved.
They buy me things. Do you remember those days on set? Were they unusually hot there? What I want to know what you remember in particular about those days.
I'll tell you what I remember. We had the twins, and we had one pair of speaking twins who were actresses. These are not the people I'm talking about, but most of the twins were, reanimations or whatever the hell they call them, of the same two girls. But they also brought in some people who were twins, didn't look like the first two girls, looked like each other, to make up different units. They were different units. And Joe DiAugusta, who was our casting director, was told to go out and get us some damn twins. So he's driving along Hollywood Boulevard, and he sees these two girls, who are obviously twins, about the right age. And he pulls over and says, "Would you like to be on a television show?" I mean, who buys that line? But they did. And I suppose it was good that they did. So they came on the set, and they took their place, and they did what they were asked to do. But I walked in one afternoon after lunch, and I see several of the crew people laughing, and they're giggling away. And I was saying, "Can I get in on the joke?" And they said, "Those two girls, they're not wearing underwear." I said, "What?" I said, "We just came from the cafeteria. They were leaning over the food.
Oh, no.
And they had no underwear on." And I said, "That's amazing." And for some reason, I felt it was my responsibility to tell them that they should wear underwear. Why? Why do I care? So I go up to them, I take them aside, and they see how serious my continence is. It's not a dirty word. And I said to them, "Ladies, it's not appropriate to come on a set and shoot with a camera and film when you don't have any underwear on." And they looked at me like I had just told them that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. They couldn't believe it. And I said, "Yeah, you really should said, can we think about it? And I, so you think about it. So I didn't talk to them until the end of the day. We were all wrapping up, and they came over to me, deadly serious, and said, we thought about it, we talked it over, and we decided you're right. We're going to wear panties from now.
Wow.
At the first, and I don't think it ever even showed in the camera, because once they saw, they probably edited it out. But what an amazing moment.
Yeah,
These
you
girls are
saved
walking
Star
around.
Trek. You saved Star Trek, Walter.
Yeah, I mean, they're paying for food. They have money, and they know the right amount to pay. They know how to hail a cab. You know, they know all these things. But not to wear underwear. I thought that was fantastic.
And that was Alice 118 and Alice 320. No.
Yeah.
No, that was that's interesting wardrobe choice. You would think
Wow.
the wardrobe department. So apparently now the makeup and the wardrobe department were both slipping.
And the yeah, I'm not gonna make that joke. But here's a shot of a lot of them. I'm sure some of them were glad that they were wearing underwear for this picture here.
I think I know which ones they are, but I'm not going to say.
Okay, cool.
These are the ones reproducing. The two next to Kirk and Spock.
Yeah, these were the two that had all the lines and stuff.
They were the actresses. They actually had lines.
Interesting shot.
Yeah, cool. I'll always think of that when I think of I Mud. You know, it's just one of those moments.
Well, that's a fun story. Do you remember anything about what was the actor's name? Roger C. Carmel. Do you remember him?
Carmel.
He was pretty tall.
Carmel, absolutely. He was a working actor. He was delightful. I mean, a little over the top, but I mean, you got to take this story that way. You know, I mean, this is sort of an Alice in Wonderland story. You know, I mean, we're dancing around and all this nonsense going on, and Roger Carmel was having a ball, and this was his second episode. Mm-hmm. He had done Mud's Women, the first year episode that I wasn't in. But he was a delightful guy. And it was great fun.
So you hadn't done Mud's Women. Okay. What were you going to say, Sirach?
No.
No, I was going to say that in this episode, I saw a lot of storylines that I feel like have been extrapolated over the years. And one of them, for example, with this main character, the Harry Mudd character, this eccentric personality we've seen kind of play over again in Star Trek in different ways, in different life form type of. I feel like this is an iteration of like Q, for example. Q's character is this over the top kind of, you know, big actor who hypens certain things and raises the stakes. And then in the episode with Data on the Next Generation, we also saw a collector guy who wanted to collect data and put him in his collection. I got vibes of that from this Harry Mudd character. But the other idea that I see as like an origin story is this idea of artificial intelligence and cybernetics being out of control or thinking for itself or wanting to take over. It seems like it's the central theme in Space Odyssey 2001 with Arthur C. Clarke, around the same time period. But the idea of artificial intelligence or robots taking over or having a mind of their own and breaking off from whatever they were initially programmed to do and having the desire to do something other than that. I feel like this is the time period where that level of fear begins to become palpable in society, where people are starting to become aware that there is a fear of the thing that we create taking over our own existence. And so I don't know how you feel about that, Walter.
Well, for one thing, this was a theme they've used more than once, you know, and making us look illogical, which impairs, is that a word?
Yes.
Yeah.
The being that we're dealing with. They get confused. Illogical, you know. So we did it more than one time because it worked so well here. I thought it worked well. I thought this was just delightful. Everybody got something. Everybody who was on screen really got something, and it was worthwhile. It was funny, you know. It was generally funny. The show was funny on a couple of occasions, which I thought was great because she certainly deserved it. The character of Stella is, you know, is very funny and very
Yes.
off the beaten track.
You know, Walter, yeah, you're right. The episode you're talking about, you're thinking of, was the Changeling that we reviewed a few months back, where Kirk defeats it by kind of going around in circles on it. And it's going illogical. That's a good point, but that is definitely something, and it feels like 50s, 60s. That's where this idea was kind of born, like what Sirach's saying, of creating artificial intelligence, creating the cybernetics, and them turning on us. You know, them coming to the conclusion of like, wait a minute, I'm superior to you, or you're a virus, you know, you're destructive, or you're imperfect, you know, whatever it is, or any combination of that. And they kind of turn around and go, why are we taking orders from you? You're destroying this, you're imperfect that. We're the ones that should be in charge, and you guys should be either our loyal subjects or exterminated, and then fill in the rest for about 14 or 15 different Star Trek episodes, basically.
Right. Yeah, I enjoyed the chemistry that I saw though between you and Nichelle Nichols, and I wanted to know, Walter, by this point, had your friendship grown to the point that there was a little slight moments there where I felt like you guys were comfortable with each other? Nichelle puts her arm on your shoulder when your guys are in that holding cell area and you're talking with Kirk, and it felt like you guys were closer at this point than obviously in the beginning. I just wanted to know if you felt any of that when you were watching this.
I truly don't recall. I do know that Nichelle was the first one to come up to me when I came on Star Trek and made a joke and introduced herself and made me feel welcome. I do know that. And I do know, and I think I told this story, where the guy came up with a picture of her from the magazine. Did I tell that story?
I think so. But I don't remember how it ended already, so please remind us.
So we were getting ready to go on, and we were, I don't know, a couple of months into the series, and the guy, we're about to go on stage. The guy comes up to us backstage with a magazine, a ratty old magazine, and opens it up, and there's a naked picture of Nichelle. He says, "Is this you?" And she stood there frozen, and I got pissed off. And I said, "How dare you put that freaking thing away?" I didn't use freaking. I used stupid. No, I didn't use stupid. Put that away, God damn it. How dare you bring that out? And so he did. And 10 seconds later, I hear in my ear, "Thank you." And that was Nichelle. And I think we never spoke about it. It never came up again. But I think that's when we bonded. I always felt close to her.
You know what? Sirach's right. You didn't tell that. You hadn't told that story before.
Yeah.
Do you remember when that was? Like early on, or? third
No, it was.
season.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when it was.
Well, that's cool.
No,
That's a
But
good story.
yeah, it
well,
is, and the
yeah,
chemistry you can feel in this. I feel like that dancing scene, for example, the one that's behind Ryan, the scene where you two are dancing together, that scene where you're in this holding cell. There's a closeness that I sensed between the two of you that I didn't feel before this. Maybe they didn't give you an opportunity to be in scenes that much together, but it definitely felt like you guys have a chemistry and a friendship at
yeah,
this point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect time to take our break, everybody. Look at that. What timing. I do want to talk more about that dancing, even if Walter's like, but what more is there to talk about with regards to that dancing? That dancing, well, we'll talk about it on the other side. Everybody, we'll be right back on the seventh rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach, the game changer Lofton, and Walter, the storyteller Koenig. Here are the trivioids of the week, the month. Mr. Norman has only been aboard the Enterprise for 3 days. Ensign Jordan in auxiliary control has been knocked out. Harry Mudd is fond of a particular model. Harry Mudd sold the Denebians all the rights to a Vulcan fuel synthesizer. Harcourt Fenton Mudd had a stellar replica made, and the makers came from the Galaxy Andromeda, the Barbara series, Maisie series, and Trudy series, and particularly the Alice series were all made to Harry Mudd's personal specifications, and Chekhov likes Alice 118 and Alice 322.
Oh God, please! I get so turned on when you just mentioned a number.
See, I was thinking 328 was the winner of
Oh,
all of them,
please
but
don't say it again.
yeah.
I love seeing you there with the two Alices, and then your line there. This is better than Leningrad.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought, man, he must have had a lot of Russian fans back in the day that loved the fact that they got to see some representation in the American mainstream media, because they're obviously a group that probably has since felt some type of prejudice or stereotype, especially during the Cold War and whatnot. But I definitely feel like you brought a lightheartedness to it, and it's a portrayal of a Russian character that you don't see. Somebody who is fun and lighthearted. I liked when you said to the captain when Mudd first comes on, and he was like, "You know this man, Captain?" He's like,
Right.
like I expect you to have way better friends than this guy. So there was very it was a good representation. I thought you had some of the really great lines there in this episode. There were moments, but they were just really good lines, well delivered. So we talked about your accent in the beginning, but I enjoyed your accent. To me, it's it works, and it was comical in the delivery most of the time.
Yeah, what about when Kirk said to the ladies, the lady said, he said, just leave. And he said, why should we leave you? And he said, because we don't like you. I was kind of surprised by that. I was like, that's such a weird non-captain thing to say. We don't like you. And then he goes, "Bup, bup, 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 bup." And I was like, that had to be a Shatner ad, right? There's no way that was written into the script.
Well, the whole tenor of the episode was a whimsy about it, Yeah, Norman was scary at first, and the situation was dangerous and all of that, but you couldn't ignore the humor. You couldn't ignore the fact that the crew was having fun. I mean, the dancing and all of that. Dorothy Fontana called me and said, "Can you do the word isn't tchotchke, but it's something where you're on your haunches and you're kicking your feet."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, sure." And then when I got up to do it, I couldn't do it. So I changed it to jumping up in the air, which was
Yeah,
equally silly. It wasn't authentic, but it was equally silly.
yeah, that it was fun, and I thought that what I enjoyed about it is the fact that a lot of the cast, the ensemble, was able to be together, and everybody had moments.
Yes,
It wasn't an episode dominated by one particular character.
absolutely.
Everybody had their moments. And to speak again about Nichelle Nichols and her performance, when she had that moment, when they had staged that moment where they made the Harry Mudd, they put him to sleep, and they staged the moment where they brought the android to him, and she says, "Oh, it's a trick. They just want to get aboard the ship and take over and whatnot." And Kirk kind of calls her out and says, "Why are you telling her this? Why are you disclosing our plans?" And when she says, I want an android body, I want immortality. I'll live forever, Captain. I'll be young and beautiful. The way she delivered those lines, I thought was amazing. Like, I thought it was beautiful. I thought her face was well lit, and the close up was right on point. And the way she delivered those lines felt like old movie magic to me. Like, I felt the magic of great films, and it was a small little portion of it, but it just let me know how talented Nichelle Nichols is as an actor, how she can nail those moments and those emotional beats when she wants to.
That's why I found the episode, watching it again, so much fun because everybody contributed. It was truly an ensemble, and yes, obviously there were people who had more to do than others, but pretty much everybody, had something to do, and it wasn't the aye captain. It was a character moment, and that was great fun to see. And I kept while I was watching, I kept saying, "Why didn't we do this more?" I mean, the audience is there for it. They're gonna respond to this. They're gonna find it charming and fun. And
I do have a few nitpicks though, and they were mostly directors' choices. I felt the physicality of some of those fight scenes with Norman in the beginning were poorly choreographed.
it's
Uh,
really good.
I noticed that. Yeah.
They
you know,
were, they were what?
they're poorly choreographed.
Holy cow.
And what I mean by that is it was filmed. It wasn't filmed right because you had the stunt double on camera in a clear shot for way too long of a period of time. In my opinion, there was like a 10-second run in which you could see that it was clearly not the actor,
Mm.
and it wasn't cut away well enough where it was mixed in with the actual actor for me to believe that it was the actual actor. So I thought that was a director's cut choice, taking this wide angle and not moving in closer for certain shots to kind of give you the back of the head or not so much frontal face of this stunt double actor. And also, when Norman first kind of walks into that room, he does a karate chop on the guy's shoulder, and I thought, what kind of soft karate chop?
That was the soft. Yeah, that was like a tap.
And he just collapsed. I mean, it was.
It was so poorly done. The karate chop, he literally didn't even put any force. It was as soft as you could possibly be
You're right.
on his shoulder. And I'm thinking, come on, this is cut away from it in a different way so we don't see the actual hit or something to that effect. That's the director. Again, I feel like he gave us a lazy choreography on the shots.
Can I just add to that since we're piling on? For me, it was during the fight scene with Norman when there was an engineer that jumps down on him, and he kind of pushed him off. The engineer lands on his feet and then lunges off to the side. And I know, not that big of a deal, but I noticed that and I was like, that's a little peculiar.
Why show that though? You could have cut away from that, right? You could have
Yeah.
just thrown him and you cut away. You don't see the guy landing on the
And
seat.
then you're
You don't
done.
know
Yeah.
how.
Yep.
Yeah. So these are all. This director. This director showed a lot more than he needed to show in those moments, and the show were the cheats. The part that he was supposed
So
to be the stuff he cheated.
I actually have something nice to say about Mark Daniels. Mark Daniels and Joe Pesci alternated every show in the second season. Okay. One would do it, the other would do the next one. And Joe Pesci, I had worked for. I'd worked for on an Alfred Hitchcock, and he kept telling me I blush to say it, so I'm not going to say it. But he had very positive things to say about me. And I'm sure he was instrumental, because he was in the room when I had to audition for Chekhov, which I thought was curious, because I had already done the Hitchcock a year before. So I always assumed that Joe had a lot to do with my getting the part. But Mark Daniels, I mean, for the first 2 or 3 shows, he never acknowledged me. He never looked at me and smiled. I thought, this guy hates me. You know, actors, you know how we are. But when we got to doing I Mud, and I had a line where I'm saying, you know, I'm resting on my elbow, and I say something, and I don't know, something kind of wistful or funny or something. And I looked up, and he's smiling. I said, okay, I'm now a member of Star Trek. You see the smile. That's what I need. After that,
he finally liked you now.
They love me. They love me. No, he liked me.
Well, a lot of times, you know, if a director's not saying anything, it's because you're doing everything great. You know, a lot of times we, as actors, you're going to want to think like, hey, this guy's not saying good job. This guy's not slapping me on the butt or high-fiving me. But the truth is, a lot of times, if they're not doing that, it means you did everything right. And
two quick examples. You're right. 2 quick examples on both sides of the coin. The first was Leonard Nimoy when he directed Star Trek 3. I'm sensitive to what the director is really thinking, not what I'm imagining in my paranoid schizoid brain. And he says nothing. Leonard says nothing. Cut, you know. And I realize it's not that he doesn't like it. He likes it fine. Don't screw with it. Just leave it alone. And that's what he was doing. We did that in the 3rd movie. I might have mentioned this before. God knows I repeat myself. When we wake up in the morning in this exterior where Spock's brain and Spock's body is in this mausoleum or whatever the hell it is. And one of us, whose name shall remain silent, got up and went, and in acting terms, we call that indicating. Like, look at me. I'm waking up. I'm showing you that I am now nothing to do with reality, having all to do with spelling it out. Leonard got furious. He said, cut! Went over to the actor, didn't look at the actor, said, don't ever do that again, and walked away. Okay? Now, the other side of the coin is I'm doing an episode of a series called Mr. Novak. And I have a good part. And it's a confession scene. And I'm in the office with Dean Jagger. I don't know if you guys remember who Dean Jagger is or was, but he was a very, very successful character actor. Tall guy, glasses. He was one of the leads on Mr. Novak. And I had this confession scene with him. And I did it. And okay, cut, wrap, okay. And I came out of there thinking, I really screwed it up. What did I do wrong? I got nothing from anybody. And I turned to the director and I said, I've screwed this film up and you're the reason. He says, what? What did I do? He didn't do anything. He just didn't say, good job.
Yeah.
Because it was okay. It was okay. Dean Jagger was quoted later as saying, this young man is a very good actor. So I screwed on, but I could see how things like that happen. And I learned from that because I directed a staging of 12 Angry Men.
Nice.
And remember that.
Oh, yeah. Great.
I did it all with women. All my actors were women. And the one who played Jack Walden, the guy who's missing his Baltimore baseball game, and he was sort of the comic relief, and he was very funny. And when I did it first with men, and then I did it with women, and so we had this young woman playing the Jack Warden part, and I thought she's perfect. She's just great. And I said nothing to her. The night we opened, she changed it completely. It was no longer funny. It was no longer brought charm or color or anything to the part. It was just plain bad. And I went up to her afterwards and I said, why did you change it? And she said, well, you never said it was any good.
Yeah.
So I made the same mistake. I never told her how fun she was.
Right. So she's sitting there second guessing the whole time, thinking he's not saying good job. Maybe I got to change it up and please, make it better. That's juror number 7, by the way. I looked it up. Juror number 7 was the baseball game person.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus, really? My goodness. Good. That's very good that you remembered that.
No, I looked it up. I did not remember. I looked it up.
I wanted to kill her husband because it was her husband who gave her the new reading. But it was not his fault. It was mine for not telling her how good she was doing. So
that's a lesson both ways, actually. It's a lesson to actors that if nobody's saying anything to you, it probably means you're doing a good job.
Right.
And the lesson to directors is if somebody's doing a good job, tell them they're doing a good job.
Exactly.
And you know what? Take a little responsibility too. If you're an actor, there's nothing wrong with going up to the director and say, "Hey, how does that look? Is that cool? What do you think?"
Right. I would have. Well, I didn't do it. And I didn't yell at him until I felt that he wasn't responding to me, and then I said it was his fault. Ridiculous. And he had no idea what I was talking about because he liked what I was doing. Anyway, that's way in the past. We don't have to go there.
Yeah, so back to Star Trek from 1967.
Yes.
That was also way in the past. So this was definitely...
Hey, can I make an observation here?
Yeah.
This is the first time I've seen in Star Trek now. This is, I believe, the first time that I've seen this, where somebody else picks the away team. I always make note of the away team because of Ryan. Ryan always says, "Oh, I'd like to, see who it is that's chosen to go to the planet's surface or to be the delegate that visits, whatever."
Mm-hmm.
So I always take note of the away teams whenever they're assembled. And in this particular case, it was Norman who said, "I want these people to be on the away team." So it was finally, for the first time, actually chosen by somebody who's not the captain or in charge of the Enterprise. This is somebody who is completely, a guest actor, choosing who they want as the away team. And in that regard, I thought it was interesting because I'm taking note, who are the most essential people being brought to this planet surface? And of course, it was Bones, Spock, Uhura, Kirk, and Chekhov. So it actually let me know, just visually as a viewer, that Chekhov has graduated to me to a level of essential personnel that would be taken on an away team mission.
Hmm.
So just from my outside viewer perspective, it completely ups your ranking to me on the scale of cast members.
Mm-hmm. Here's something that I noticed as well. The guy that got knocked out in security from the violent karate chop was Lieutenant Rowe. Everybody in the comments below, tell us, do you know of another Rowe? Give us 2 more Rows that played lieutenants in Star Trek. 2 more Rows. And I don't mean Rose Nyland of the Golden Girls. Okay. Anyway, you guys want me to just tell you the answer? I mean,
I know the answer.
I think you might. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I think one of them is Rohanna. No,
Rolaren.
Rolaren. Okay, and
on
that's
the
all
next
I got.
on the next generation, and the other
Well,
one.
Well, the other one with the very long name, row, row, row your boat.
Right, that was that's a Lower Decks character. No, the other one is Lieutenant Bryce on Star Trek Discovery, played by Ronnie Rowe. That's a good one.
Yeah, that was good.
Maybe there is a third one. If there's a third one, everybody in the comments below, let us know. Is there a third Rowe?
Oh, okay. This is another obvious one that I can't believe we haven't gotten to by now. We've been sidetracked so many things. But this is another obvious take. And I don't know, Walter, you tell me if you got this as well. But was I the only person that saw Austin Powers when they were watching this? Because in the Mike Myers Austin Powers movies, he's this villain character or whatever, this hero character, Austin Power character. But I remember him having these robot all women.
Yes. Fembots. That's what they were. Fembots.
Fembots, right? Is that what they were called?
Yeah, with guns.
So to me, that Austin Powers trope is actually troping this particular episode. It seems like Harry Mudd is the original kind of blueprint for an Austin Powers type of character.
Interesting. It was recognizable to me from just the late 60s feel. You know what I mean? Like I definitely, whether it's Austin Powers, whether it's James Bond, whether it's, something like this, like Star Trek. Another one that was kind of familiar and eerie was what I believe Norman said. Towards the end, he said, "You will be happy and controlled." And I'm like, ooh, that sounds like some 1984 stuff or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's you will be happy and controlled, which of course, I think anybody that hears that, the first thing they think is, well, if I'm controlled, I'm not going to be happy. I mean, no. I don't think so, at least.
By the way, the actor who played Norman, I thought he was very effective. Very effective. Being an android and still, a sense of menace and threat and danger. I thought he did a good job. Do you know who he was?
Let me check. Yes, I remember his name. His name was, it's right at the tip of my tongue. Here it is. Right here I've got it now. It was, God, it's taking me too long to find it. Richard Tatro. Everybody knows, of course, Richard Tatro.
That's interesting because I never heard it again. I never heard it since.
Yeah.
He may have done lots of other things. But
no, he actually only did, according to IMDb, which obviously doesn't have everything, this was actually his last thing that he did as an actor, was Star Trek. He worked from 1961 to 1967. He's got 7 credits. And the last one being this Star Trek episode.
Hmm.
He's from
Yeah,
Massachusetts.
that was another moment that I felt like this is one of the first moments we've seen like this. And that was when Norman revealed that he was a robot, and he lifted his shirt and kind of peeled back a layer of his skin to show a computer mechanism operating underneath his skin,
Mm-hmm.
which is what they later used for Data, which is what they've used many times over for other kind of robotic, uh, cyborg type individuals. They always have that moment where there's that reveal that there's a panel that has, electronic equipment underneath it. So again, this is kind of one of those first moments where you see that done. And I thought it was interesting to see Spock and Kirk when they look and they see he's like, I'm a robot. And Spock looks down. He's like,
Yeah.
nice robotic package you got there.
Yeah, nice buttons and lights.
Yes.
Well, look, everybody, speaking of juror number 7, who do you guys think gets the home run of the day? Because remember, juror number 7 was going to go to a baseball game. Walter, who gets the home run of today's episode?
It's a little tougher than it usually is because there were several people who contributed, and they contributed in a positive way. But I guess in terms of the length of the participation, I'd have to give it to Norman. I mean, he was a force throughout. He was the antagonist. He was the bad guy, and everything was bounced off of him, in terms of our behavior. And I thought he maintained that appearance and that approach, throughout. So I'd say, yeah, he was very significant to me.
Mm-hmm. What about yourself, Sirach Lofton?
Yeah, these kind of episodes where you have like such a good ensemble performance, it's hard to isolate one guy and give him the home run. Multiple people kind of hit home runs in this episode, and when they had their moments. But I'm going to say the person I thought did a lot of legwork as far as moving the story along and balancing the level of playfulness and seriousness was William Shatner. I thought William Shatner deserved the home run for this particular episode. And he gave me a little bit of everything. You knew that there was a history there with him and this Harry Mudd character. He had a little bit of a playfulness to it. He also took it seriously enough to make me feel like this was a problem that needed to be solved. So, I'm going to give it to William Shatner.
One note that I forgot to mention was there was an uncredited rewrite of this script by friend of the show, David Gerald. Apparently, he had an uncredited rewrite of this episode. What Sirach's saying, I kind of agree with that. I noticed that Shatner likes to add as much as he can to the character at all times to show and to demonstrate not just, hey, I'm the lead of this show, but also I'm playing the boss character. I need to always be in charge. So even when somebody else is saying something and then somebody else needs to talk, I noticed on a number of occasions, Shatner would act like he's about to say something just before the other person talks, rather than just this person talks and now this person talks. He's not just saying, okay, well, it's between those two. He would always act as if, oh, I was just about to say something before you stopped me. I was just about to say something and I decided not to. So he wanted to always have, I just chased off Walter. He always wants to have that feeling of, I'm in charge. I'm the guy. Everything's going through me. But That being said, I'm giving it to Walter because when Sirach, you're saying somebody that's doing all the legwork, Walter did the legwork with those jump moves. Like he did some jumps, he did some flips and whatever he was doing. That was, to me, the most impressive thing that I saw in this episode. So if he did the most impressive thing, I'm giving him the home run of the episode. And now, I guess Walter doesn't know we take breaks. We'd like to give a very special thanks to the following people.
Homer.
You know it. Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom T.J. Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Muller, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anil O. Palat, The Traveler, Joe Balcerati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Life from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Tim Baum, Chris Sternett, Dylan Powell, Peter Draymore, Chris Garris, and of course, Jason Oken and Greg K. Wickstrom. All right, everybody, stick around. Got the free-for-all up next. We will be... There's Walter. We will be right back on the 7th rule. Walter, you got the home run of the episode for your legwork.
Yeah.
He's
excited.
Hey, everybody, guess what? We're back with more. The 7th rule. It's the free-for-all with Sirach Lofton and Walter Koenig. Of course, Melissa Longo's here. Jason M. Oken is here. Wait.
Yeah.
That's what it is. He's got a cool background. Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel is here all the way from Manhattan.
Hi.
Also her favorite drink. TJ Jackson Bay's out in Missouri. And Chris Laddybuck McGee is here. What's up? Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear. Awesome background. We've got Chris Garris hanging out in Texas, South Texas, that is. And Allison Leach Hyde up in the mountains of New Mexico. I didn't even know they had, I guess, a mountain time zone, right? Okay. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Oh. I'm going to say this was an 8.
Mm-hmm. What's your guess, Walter? Do you have a guess as to all the people that rated this episode on IMDb, all the thousands around the world? What do you think it averaged out to be between 1 and 10?
Well, I don't know. I only know how I felt about it. That's the only comment I can make with any sense of certainty. And I'd give it a 9.
A 9. Does anybody else have any guesses what it is on IMDb that doesn't already know?
I'll say a 7.6.
I'm thinking like just a 7.1.
All right. It's like all bets are in. The answer is, let me check my notes to make sure that, yes, all bets are in. 7.3. 7.3 is the answer. Now, you know, some people, there are a lot of people on the internet that go, I don't like this fake accent. I'm going to give it a 1. And that really brings down the average. All right. Any non-appearance mentions in this one? No, I didn't get one either. Chris McGee, Dark Lord, any some kinds of or some sorts of?
Not this time again.
Whoa. I guess we just get right to the meat of it. Melissa Longo, please get us started off on the right track by telling us what you thought of this episode entitled I, Mud.
It was a pretty fun episode. And while I was watching it, kept thinking, gosh, this must have been a fun episode to film. Just because there's so many fun moments, fun antics, and how they deceive the androids. But and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I love seeing how the original series laid the groundwork for so much of what we see in Trek today. It's wonderful. The introducing androids. Hello, Data. Introducing the singular android mind. Norman. Hello, Borg. You know, it's kind of, we see the groundwork being laid for all of these shows that come in the future, and I think that's wonderful. And I think that it's a testament to the imagination of the creators and everyone involved in the original series. I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Great
what did you
stuff.
rate it?
Oh, yeah. What did you rate it, Melissa?
I think I would rate it probably an 8.5, just because of some of the underwear issues.
Wait, did you notice them?
I did.
Oh,
I did notice some things in multiple scenes. So, you know, I'm like, oh, wait a
wow.
minute. Whoa. Wait a minute. Whoa.
Wow.
Things are more high def nowadays.
True. Wow. All right. Cheeky stuff. Thanks very much, Melissa
Yes.
Longo.
Real
Jason, Jason M. Oken is here. What did you think of this episode?
Well, to me, this is an interesting episode from the standpoint of it almost looks like two different episodes. For about an act and a half, maybe 2 acts, it's pretty serious. And it starts out certainly, you know, take over the Enterprise, this and that, and then obviously it becomes a little bit more comedic once we get down to the planet. We get Harry Mudd. So I think it covers all the bases, and you know, from what I understand, it's kind of a, I wouldn't say love and hated kind of relationship with this. Either you kind of like sort of this silly, funny Star Trek, or you don't. I think it just stays on the borderline of still being, I don't want to say acceptable, but it certainly is eminently watchable and it's fun. And yeah, if the whole episode was like this, it may have been a little bit harder to watch. But I think there's enough seriousness, enough thought to this that does make it a very fun episode. I think Mark Daniels did a pretty good job at it, and I think it looks wonderful with Jerry Finneman's lighting. If you look at all the colors everywhere, it just looks beautiful. It's just kind of eye candy, and I think, you know. And Melissa, you said it. I mean, it really does look like everybody's having fun shooting it, because it's just kind of silly. I think, you know, if I were to say anything sort of slightly negative, is I'm not a fan of that partial score. I think that to me is a little bit, makes it a little bit sillier than it should be. I think that's the only thing that sort of brings it down for me a little bit. But it's certainly a fun episode to watch. Again, when the actors are having fun, it looks wonderful. It's certainly enjoyable for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Like everybody was having a good time. Thanks very much, Jason M. Oken. Also, Anne M. Seagull. What's up, Anne Marie? What did you think of this one?
I love it. Obviously, I gave it a 10 on IMDb. Walter's so cute in it. I just like, it's just silly and good TV. And I love it so much I have matching coasters for the episodes. But like, I only have my Muds Women right now. I don't have my iMud. They're so fun. Yeah. Love it.
Wow, they're like poster coasters?
Yes. From STLV.
Pretty awesome. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Dr. Anne-Marie Seagull. All right, TJ Jackson Bay out in the middle of the country, Missouri. What do you think of this one?
I'm not programmed to respond in that area. I always liked this episode, and you know, I always thought it was interesting when the original series had these recurring characters like Harry Mudd. And so, you know, I thought it was interesting that they addressed a bit of continuity there, because Chekhov wasn't there the last time the ship encountered Harry Mudd. So he's like, you guys know this guy? Like, who's this dude? You know, so I thought that was interesting too. I had a interesting experience. I'm here on the bridge, and all the androids have just left, and so I'm looking through the security logs and evaluating their response to when Kirk called them to auxiliary control, and they did good. They were, Johnny on the spot. But it seems like once they knew the android was in engineering, it took Kirk like 2 minutes to tell security to go to the engine room. So I kind of blame Kirk for getting them stranded on this planet. One of the other interesting things that I picked up in this episode is when Mudd talked about, stealing these patents and giving them to other societies. Kirk's response was to ask, well, did you pay royalties to the people who own these? And so, we get to hear a little bit about, how finances work, in the Federation, because we know that at some point they stop using money or something, or use some kind of different form of trading. But here they're still using money and paying for things. And there's reference to that here in this episode, so I enjoyed that. Also, enjoyed Chekhov's interactions with the androids, and just finally saying, you know what, this is better than Leningrad. Like I like it here. And I also thought it was interesting that so these androids were built for service. I kind of wonder, why the Federation didn't study that a little bit more. And I also thought that one of the things they could have used against the androids instead of what they did do, which was effective, was to say, hey, if you really want to study us, you need to study us in our natural environment. We need to be in the ship, doing our jobs. And if you want to know how humans act, that's what it is. But that wouldn't have worked because the androids already had their minds made up about humans being greedy and corruptible.
Okay.
And so, lots of things in this episode. There's more to be said about it. And I'll leave with my quote of the episode, which is, you can't evaluate a man biologically alone. They also should have listened to McCoy early on, and they could have stayed out of this mess.
Did you call back at 4? Okay, I'll talk to you then.
That's an excellent point, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri. All right. Chris Laddie Buck McGee is up next. What did you think of this one, Chris?
Oh, well, I very much agree with Jason. It's a fun episode. It combines a serious plot along with comedy, and I think the witty exchanges between Mudd and Kirk are fantastic and really make the episode for me. I think this may be, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe the only instance in the show, the original series show, of a recurring character within the series. I mean, Christopher Pike's first appearance was in an unaired pilot, and Khan's second appearance is in a feature film, so I don't think those two really count.
Good point.
Anyway, thankfully for Sirach's sake, it is necessary to have seen Mudd's women to enjoy I, Mudd. Fun fact, if it hasn't been addressed already, this episode has the longest teaser in the series, clocking in at 5 minutes, 35 seconds. This may have been addressed in a previous segment, but I didn't even realize until I watched the episode yesterday, probably first time in decades, that the episode's title, I, Mudd, is clearly an allusion to Isaac Asimov's I, Robot. And of course, the androids' plans to take the Enterprise for themselves and enslave humans gives me vibes from that book and its 3 laws of robotics, which are twisted to make the androids dangerous. I'm sure also, side note, that whoever put the androids numbered 66 and 99 on either side of Mudd's throne when we meet them thought they were being absolutely hilarious. But I'll go ahead and jump to my memorable quote and save all my other nitpicks for things I've done said. And there were so many great memorable quotes in this episode. the one that always stuck with me, and you may think it's a little bit odd, but I think it's the most memorable to me solely because it's the first thing you hear on Information Society's debut album, and that is McCoy's line, "It's worked so far, but we're not out yet."
Excellent. Very good. Thank you very much, Chris. Laddie Buck McGee. Yeah, Harry Mudd sure was calling everybody a lot of Laddie Bucks and Jimmy Boy, Jamie, whatever, all kinds of stuff. All right, Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear. We did see that cool background behind you, but we didn't see the version with these extra things added on top. How are you? What do you think of this one?
Good. Yeah, I found this photo on IMDb and just very, very much enjoy it. Like this episode. I think it's fun. It's just absolutely campy and fun, and I love the campy ones. Those tend to be my favorite ones. All of the stuff they do to confuse the androids is just laugh out loud funny, especially Spock with the "I love you, no, I hate you." Okay. Just absolutely too much fun. I love Harry Mudd. I think he is a riot. I want more of him. I loved it when on Discovery we got an episode with him. I'm still holding out hope that we get to see him at least once, maybe twice on Strange New Worlds at some point, because they're still back in that area, so he could show up at some point. Apparently, they wanted him in a season 3 episode at first, but then they decided they didn't want to do the funnier episodes anymore. So then they thought about having him in one of the movies, but he was not doing very well health wise. So then they ended up scrapping that. But I'll take a limited series on Paramount Plus, maybe, because apparently there was potential plans for a spinoff show of just Harry Mudd, and I think that would just be, I keep using fun ad nauseum, but it just keeps applying because he's funny. The actress that played Stella, his wife, was definitely making me think of Susie Plaxton, in particular the way she played the female Q on Voyager. She almost even looked like her. And Kirk is very good at talking robots to death. This episode being apparently one of 4 where he does that. We've seen him do it with Nomad already. I love that they were all of the dresses and that the ladies are all reused from a bunch of previous episodes, including Mudd's women. Now, speaking of laying groundwork, Melissa, this also has some seeds you'll see later on in other sci-fi shows. Putting a human brain into an android, that's the Cybermen from Doctor Who, although arguably in a less pretty package than human looking android. And speaking of human looking androids for service, that's how you get the Cylons wiping out most of humanity in the Battlestar Galactica reboot, where you've got at least the first 8 models you meet of the Cylons that are like the androids on Planet Mudd. There are many, many copies. And there are several scenes along the course of that series where you see many of them walking around and interacting with each other. Computer's obviously getting a lot better at doing that. And the clever way they did it in this episode in particular was using lots of sets of twins, which I absolutely love. It makes it easier. It's cheaper because then you can just have an extra thing of wardrobe. So all of that fun stuff, and of course I'll shout out Battlestar Galactica very often as I have in the past, and probably will continue to when situation calls for it. But my haiku is very short. It ended up being more synopsy than usual. So we've got a haiku this time. A planet called Mudd. Lots of lookalike androids. Mind games aid escape.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear. I put the clovers because I thought you were going with a limerick, but that was haiku. All right. Chris Garris is here in South Texas. What's up, Chris? What do you think of this episode? Had you ever seen it before? Are you a Star Trek fan?
Oh, I'm a Star Trek fan. I just had never seen this episode until for this part, and I'm actually going through, trying to go through TOS right now. I'm trying to go
Wow.
through it. And this was the one I was on.
Perfect.
No, actually, so overall, I liked it. It was definitely funny. I like how Kirk, he had just zero issues when he realized it was Harry Mudd. I mean, he would just speak his mind. He was giving him orders. Granted, Mudd was ignoring them, but he didn't care. He was just straight out telling him, "I want my shit back." Bemis, he just like, I'm trying. He was being his captain. And then you did notice, though, I did notice that it did have a hard cut when it went from the funny. I mean, it still was funny, but I thought it had a hard cut when it went from the silliness and the funniness to then when all of a sudden Norman and them were like, we're going to take over and all of that, take over and all that. And it also, like Melissa said, it lays a lot of groundwork. And I'm going to say one of my things for the other side, but it was also I felt like it was the first time that we actually saw an android take over the Enterprise, like Data did in Brothers. And so, because I was like, and that's something I've talked earlier. You see a lot of redo, and they use a lot of those different premises at times, and so. But I have a few more things for the other part. But no, it was a good episode, and I did love. I'm not gonna lie, when they were tricking oh my God, Spock doing his trying to trick the androids, and then when they just finally, when Norman his head just fried, that was hilarious. And then all of them just freezing up and like, okay. And then, of course, I don't know. It was funny though when he tried to do the Vulcan neck pinch on one of them. I'm like, that's not gonna work. But again, they were trying to trick him. So overall, it was good. It was one of the episodes I didn't mind watching.
Yeah, my first time too. Srock's first time as well. Great stuff. Thanks. I know. Can you believe it? Thanks very much, Chris Garris. All right, Allison Leach Hyde is here wearing her Cisco Kid was a good friend of mine. What do you think of this episode?
This episode is a ton of fun. So, it's enjoyable to watch. And anytime we get to watch the entire crew be contrary to make androids' brains fry is fun to watch. I love that we got we just didn't have a lot of Sulu in this episode, but we had like the entire crew in on this. And I really liked having them all together. It wasn't just the, Kirk, Spock, and Bones show. So it was great having more of our favorite crew, down there on the planet going through this whole thing together. So I really liked that. Uhura getting to, go, oh no, I want to, to her getting to trick them. Like, I know, I want you to put my brain in a body and be young forever. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like her. I'm like, oh no, we're tricking. She did a great job. So really enjoyed that aspect too. And I think my favorite line in this one is right in the beginning when, we have Spock and McCoy walking down the hall and he's saying why he doesn't like this dude. And Spock just looks at him like, but that's me. And he goes, oh, the ears make all the difference. And I'm like, oh, that's my favorite because, Bones is always, saying pointy eared, whatever. And so I like that he used it as saying like, no, you are Vulcan. And that's why this is okay. So I enjoyed that. And my other favorite bit is when you're all making the whistling phaser sounds while killing Scotty. I thought that was
oh yeah, that was good stuff. Yeah.
I'm like, this is perfect. So, when you're first going
weapons.
Exactly. I'm like, but we can whistle at you. So that's, it was a ton of fun. And yeah, and it looks like, as Melissa said, everyone looked like they were having a great time, which always makes it fun for us to watch too.
Mm-hmm. Very good stuff. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde. somebody in the whistling scene, there were like 4 people whistling, but somebody was actually really good at making it kind of like warble or something. I was trying to figure out who it was. I was like, who's the pro whistler out there? Somebody's really good at it. Walter Koenig, do you happen to have any final thoughts on this episode?
Only that for those people who rated it less than I did, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it as much as I did, because I thought it was really delightful, charming, and everybody contributed. That's what I really loved. That everybody had a moment, at least a moment. So all of that makes me very proud to have been associated with this particular episode. That's all.
Mm-hmm. And Jake's final take. Sirach Lofton, any final thoughts on this particular episode that you just watched for the very first time and that you'll probably put on right after this to watch a second time?
There was a couple things. One, I wanted to just highlight Uhura's earrings. I thought they really popped and they looked great in this episode. Didn't really notice them before as much, but I think Anne Marie's wearing a version of those earrings, right? Yeah, those green jade earrings looked great on Uhura in this episode. They popped to me. And so, yeah, that was one thing I wanted to make sure I kind of gave a shout out to. I'm glad that dressing like a pirate really never goes out of style. So that's a good thing to know, that we can always hold on to that. Also, you know, I don't know. There were things that I liked, things that I didn't like about the episode, but overall, I did like the episode. Some of the tropes, like about your nagging, annoying wife being put into a wall, I wasn't necessarily cool with that. It felt like it was just too over the top of a trope and a little bit chauvinistic, in my opinion. Just a little played out. But yeah, I also thought it was interesting that when Norman came on the ship, he went into sleep mode, and we all know that to be the case now with our electronic devices going into sleep mode. But this is something that had, this predates our phones and laptops going into sleep mode. So I thought that's an interesting kind of first here, long before it actually became a reality. So those are my final takes. Also, I couldn't figure out what the hell Norman was doing with that white glowing rock thing that he was kind of holding on to. I like, what is he? Why is he stroking that white phone? I couldn't figure it out. So those are my final takes for this episode.
We were all thinking it.
Show.
And Uhura's earrings, as seen here on the right. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And when you look at the necklace that the Alice's wear, everybody's wearing, I think another testament to what a classic episode this is that in every auction, even last month, there was a prop auction. They go for hundreds of dollars every time. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Nice slice of history right there. All right, everybody, that's our time for the week, or the month, whatever you want to call it, for the episode. Thank you to Allison, Chris G, Carrie Schwent, Chris M, TJ, Anne Marie, Jason, Melissa, for myself, Walter Koenig, Sirach Lofton, Melissa Longo, and of course, Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us. We will see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule and visit IMDb and rate that stuff higher.